Hi, this is Steph again. I wanted to do a follow-up to the last video I put out about Mike's last uh, go-round. Um, and that video was not about me. It was more about him, what he went through, how panicked he was, and I really wanted to make it more about just so people know if you have to call for EMS that you know first of all, we all need to be more responsible for ourselves. And we were. Mike, we ate as healthy a diet as we could. We'd go to the grocery store and we were the only people reading labels. I mean, I don't buy anything with added sugar. I do like fruit juices, but I try, to, I don't just overdose on them. Um, you know, we looked for like non-GMO foods and organic as you get these days. And plus, we had a garden. We grew a lot of stuff, and we didn't use any chemicals. It was all our stuff was organic. Um, and he just had the mindset that he was not going to just sit in a chair and wait, for the end. He was living his life, doing the best he could. And I have I have CRPS, which was formerly called RSD. If you want to look that up on your own, it's an autoimmune neurological thing. It sucks. And in fact, I was just cleaning my house and my leg was starting to bother me. So I figured, well, I'll sit down and throw out I always say quick video, and they never end up being quick. But I got really, really, really nice comments, and I don't know if it was that video, but somewhere along the line I picked up some extra subscribers, and I do appreciate that. It's just I don't know. I'm not a computer nerd. I mean, I'm a nerd, but not like I don't. I go in the YouTube studio. I watch content creators who will say, "Oh, well, my average viewer is age whatever," but I don't know. I don't know how you find this stuff. I click on new subscribers, and it's like the same three that have been there, and then there's a thing underneath to click for like more, but nothing comes up, and I don't know. So I don't know who everyone is that subscribes, but I do appreciate it. And I'm sorry that I don't really know who you are for the most part. But I had comments from nurses, couple EMS people, a person who I believe had some medical issues himself, and he said he didn't really know what to expect if an ambulance needed to come, and so I really enjoyed the engagement, because I'll tell you, I've had one neighbor, my neighbors up on the corner, who are like in their 80s. They're almost 64, November 11th, actually. And so they're really old enough to be my parents, which is, it's weird, like when you're all old. But they were the only ones that he saw me out one day, and, he went like this, and I walked over, and he just wanted to see how I was doing. And the next day, his wife brought a box of food and some milk and eggs and things, and I didn't need it. I had plenty of food and whatnot, but, it was the gesture. It was the fact that they took the time to think about me and to come over here. My neighbors drive down the street, and it's just, no one looks, no one has said anything. I have gotten a total of, 3 sympathy cards, but one is from a company just across the road here that we were mowing their lawn for them. One was from my friend who lives across the road, and another one was from a friend in the next town who lives across the street from one of my cousins. And that's it. I guess I know it's awkward, and I understand that, but I would appreciate someone just coming and saying, I don't really know what to say, instead of just ignoring me. But I don't know. I guess that's just the societal shift we've had. It that kind of blends into what I was saying about EMS and medical people in general. It just seems like the empathy and the compassion, you know, the humanness, really, it's just not there. We've been sort of transitioned out of being social with each other in person into this social media realm. And I very much enjoy the engagement, and it gave me something to do yesterday, and then early this morning there were a couple of comments I hadn't seen before I went to bed, but so I was able to sit and read them and respond back. And but I like to be with people, and I've pretty much just, in fact, I don't even know where my one friend seems to have dropped off the earth now. I saw her one day last week, and I haven't seen her. I haven't talked to her. I don't know if she was supposed to be looking into something for me, but I don't know. I know our world is crazy, and it's not getting any less crazy. And this is not a political channel. I don't have any political leanings one way or the other. The government could pack up their bags and go home, and I'd be perfectly fine with that. But anyway, so based on the comments, I thought I would first of all quickly let you know, like, if I had been a medic responding to my house that day, this is how it would have gone. And the other half is, if you need to call for an ambulance, like if you don't really know what to do or what kind of information they need, I'll go over that quickly. So if dispatch had sent us out for a patient in heart failure, 3 prior heart attacks, and presently having severe chest pain, number one, definite lights and sirens response. And we pretty much, at least everywhere I ran and everyone else that I knew, we always at least went to the call, because you just don't know. I mean, sometimes people call things in, they play it down. Sometimes they play it up, and you really don't know what kind of call you're going to have till you get there. And I'm not saying drive, 100 miles an hour and be a nutball. I mean, just put the lights and sirens on so you at least can get through traffic and you can get there as expeditiously and safely as possible. Now, on the way to the hospital, you don't need them as much, because, I mean, unless your patient's completely out, sometimes the siren kind of makes people nervous, and you want to do everything to not upset your patient, any more than they already are. Now, I had patients who actually wanted, were asked, like, well, aren't you going to put the sirens on, because they wanted that. They thought that was cool, and I don't remember if we did or not, but I just remember some random patient somewhere along the line. But, that's all subjective choice. Just, depends on the situation, obviously, common sense. But anyway, and also, while you're en route, I mean, if you have a medic on board anyway, you've got a heart monitor, you've got IVs, you've got meds, you're able to be doing basically, what the ER would be doing. If you need to put a breathing tube in, you can do that. So there's not really a reason to have your lights and sirens going. But like I said, if your patient is unconscious, they're not going to know. But anyway, so that day, if I was driving, or if I was not driving, I would have told the driver, just park it right here, or back it halfway into my driveway and let the front of the truck stick out, because it wouldn't have been any more in the way than the whole entire truck sitting, this way on the street. I would have been embarrassed if I had a family member yelling from a porch to tell me to park my truck, because I mean, that's like basic of basics. Like, you need to park your vehicle ASAP, and then I would have pulled the stretcher out. I would have thrown everything I needed on, the monitor, the jump kit, the O2, and back in my day, we carried also what was called a white box. It was a little white box with like a phone handset. I mean, they don't use them anymore. Everyone uses their cell phones, but that's how I called if I needed a doctor to give me an order for certain drugs or whatever. And that's also what I used to call in to the ER and give them a patient report. Uh, so I would have grabbed a stretcher, thrown everything on there, wheeled it up. Now I have a ramp out front. It's my ramp because I have a hard time with steps. But uh, you can very easily get the stretcher up and around where the ramp bends to come in the porch. It's a straight shot in, so it wouldn't have been a problem. But if it was, they could have just grabbed their equipment and brought that in. The next thing, let me back up. Whenever I was parking my truck, or we were pulling up on scene, I'd be looking. I mean, number one, you want to make sure that when we went on shootings, I mean, kind of a good idea to make sure the person who shot someone else isn't still there. But I ran in on many shootings where we were there and gone before there was ever a cop on scene. That was down in Philly. I mean, that's just the way it was. But the other thing I would do is, I'd look over at the house and see, okay, is it like flat? Is it a straight shot right in the front door? Are there steps? What's going to be the best way for us to get the patient out of the house once we get in there? That's just, again, like common sense stuff. And when you're just parking the truck and you are kind of thinking on the way to the call, different scenarios, or at least I did. And, what I might have to do, or, that sort of thing. But it only takes a couple seconds to glance over where you're going and see, like I said, if there's steps or not, or, the best way you're going to get the patient out. Then when I came in, first thing I would have done, they were over here, and I wish I could show you, but I have another couch. There's a little corner over here. I have a couch, a recliner, and there's a coffee table. Mike was laying over on that couch. Now, what I would have done is I would have taken that coffee table and slid it back here where you go into our kitchen at the foot of our stairway. Next thing I would have done, I have a glider rocker and an ottoman here. I would have taken them and slid them back where the coffee table was. Now, the EMT could have been doing that while the medic was assessing him, which actually she never even assessed him. She took his BP only because, I'd given him nitro, and then I took his BP, and when they came in, I said he's hypotensive, and now my phone's ringing for the 100th time today. But so would have gotten the furniture out of the way. That way, the EMT, who was just standing there, just watching everything, sorry, I'm going for more hand surgery, which don't really want, but he's going to fuse. This one's starting to swan neck again. I don't know if you can see that very well, but anyway, this middle joint is starting to go downwards, and you can see how that's pointed. It's kind of fixed. So he's going to go in there and just make it permanently curved like this one is. Because I've been trying to play my bassoon, and I just can't, can't get my hand around it. My hand needs to be able to flex like this. So anyway, that's what the phone call is about. Sorry about that. But okay, so I would have moved the furniture out of the way. I would have told the EMT, either get a set of vitals or, put the heart monitor on. I mean, it doesn't matter who really is doing what. The medic is the one that has to look at the heart monitor, but it doesn't matter who puts it on, as long as you know where to put the electrodes. And you really shouldn't even have to direct, a medic shouldn't have to tell an EMT to be doing something and vice versa. I mean, you should work like left and right hand, working together, like one just knows what the other one is doing. At least that was usually my experience. I was very lucky when I worked like a quick response vehicle. I had a partner who just was fabulous, and one of the towns I worked for, I had a partner there who was just, we barely talked to each other on a call because like he knew I knew what to do, and I knew he knew what to do, and there was no like, well, you need to do this or whatever. We just stuff got done. But anyway, So moved the furniture out of the way. I would have told the EMT, get in there and, like hook up the monitor. In the meantime, she could have been asking me because I'm right there. I knew what was going on. So rather than asking Mike to expend energy and have to give a whole story, but whoever you get the history from, you have to get a history. So I would have had that EMT doing something, not just standing there. And I would have done a quick head to toe. I mean, you don't have to do every little thing, because I was one of those people. I mean, I used to listen for bowel sounds, and even if they didn't have a problem with their belly, I would palpate their belly. And I mean, I did a complete head to toe, and you can do that in very, very little time. But she never listened to his lung sounds. She never actually felt his pulse. That was one trick I learned, for anyone who is in EMS or starting or planning on it. I'd go in and I would tell the patient, what you're doing. And I would say, sir or ma'am, I'm going to take your pulse, because it's one thing to see the monitor, but when I'd go in and start talking to the patient, I would grab their pulse and I would let them know why I was grabbing their wrist or touching them. You don't want to just start getting all touchy-feely with people, because, sometimes they don't know what you're doing. And by just taking the pulse, I could tell, was it rapid, slow, thready, bounding. I could feel the skin. Was it cool, dry, moist? Was the skin warm or hot? Whatever. Plus, you can see the color. You could look at the nail beds. Are they getting bluish? Is the patient in need of oxygen? And that takes a matter of seconds. I mean, you count a pulse in 15 seconds, you multiply by 4. And then you can compare what you got with what's on the monitor. Next thing, he was laying down, and he was not struggling. He was not. It's called orthopnea, when you need to sit up to breathe. And most patients in heart failure become orthopnic. He never was, which was very, very odd. But he always slept flat, and he was laying flat on the couch. He had his head on a pillow, but I would have asked him if he needed to sit up, which I had already done, and he said no, he was comfortable the way he was. And you want to go with what the patient says. I mean, if they don't want to sit up and they're okay and they're not having trouble breathing, then go with what the patient knows themselves better than you know. They're the ones that live in their body. So, and I would have put oxygen on him right away. I would, I don't rely on the pulse ox, because there's a number of things. You can look up a list, but if you have nail polish on, if you have really dirty fingertips, greasy, and he was a mechanic, and a lot of times he liked to be out back tinkering on like a weed eater or something, and very often he had greasy fingertips. And when he was a full-time mechanic, he would take a shower, and you could see the oil oozing out of his pores. I mean, he literally had that much oil in him. So, and again, it's a nice adjunct to have a pulse ox, but I didn't treat my patients based on what a piece of machinery was telling me. I treated based on what I'm seeing, hearing, my senses, what I'm feeling, all that stuff. Those are nice adjuncts to have, but that's not your patient. It's a piece of equipment. But they should have done a quick head to toe. At the very least, they should have listened to his lung sounds. They should have checked for edema. Now, he tended to have what's called ascites, where he retained the fluid in his abdomen. And he said that he did not feel like he was retaining fluid. He did not have pedal edema. So, get him on a monitor, check his BP, because you can't drop a nitro unless your systolic is at least 100, which it was not at the time they arrived. I forget what it was exactly. It was not real low, but it was in the lower 90s, I think, or something. But anyway, so they should have gotten the monitor on, gotten him on O2, gotten a quick history for me. I already had his meds bagged up. And normally I write everything down for them, but I just didn't have time because I was running around trying to get my clothes on. And get my dogs secured and all this stuff, and I just didn't have time. But normally I will have everything because I know exactly the information they need. Um, so I just threw his meds in a bag, and you can do an IV en route, and our hospital is like 2 minutes from here. You have to go up and around because there's a creek over here. But if it was a straight shot, you could probably be there in a minute or less. But it, you know, it should have been pretty straightforward. Bring all your equipment in, move some furniture out of the way, do a quick assessment, get him on the monitor, get him on O2, check his vitals, listen to his lungs, and be ready to load him on a stretcher and get him moving. Because, you know, well, anyway, and I could probably go into more detail, but that's essentially what I would have done. And I'm already 21 minutes in here, but I was trying to keep this really short. But if you need to call for EMS, number one, if you have animals, dogs particularly, I had a dog come zooming in a room one time, came from around the corner and came right at me. And I was like, well, I hope he's friendly, he, she, and it just came up and sniffed me. But, animals can get kind of vicious if they're being protective of their owners. In fact, that day I was having a heck of a time with my one dog because he did not want to leave Mike's side. And I was trying to bribe him with I can't say the word, my code word's potato for, the little crunchy things that I can't say the word because they're right here. But I was trying to bribe him, and I thought, oh my gosh, I got to get this dog out of here because he can be a little intimidating. And I finally remembered, oh, he loves to go down the basement whenever I go down there. So I went over and I opened the door and I got like halfway down the basement steps. And thankfully, he went down the basement. And I shut the door. I threw the other one in the bath. I didn't throw her. I put her in the bathroom. And my other two, I put them in their crate. So secure your dogs and keep an eye. These guys were pissing me off because they kept leaving my door hanging wide open. And I have indoor cats. And some of them do try to escape. And I kept going over and shutting the door. And I don't remember. I think I said something to somebody like, can you please try to keep this door shut because I want my cats to get out. And I don't need, So anyway, if you have animals, particularly dogs, secure your dogs because they're probably going to ask you to do that anyway. I don't get particularly all upset about animals. I'll just ask, like, is your dog friendly? And if they say yeah, it's like, okay. But like I said, they dogs, even if I had a beagle who was just not. Well, beagles aren't known for like being guard dogs and things. They're usually pretty goofy and friendly, and he was. I mean, he was never ever aggressive towards anyone or anything. But Mike came home one day and I was unconscious on the floor, and he had a heck of a time getting our dog away from me and putting him in the bedroom. I was in a diabetic coma. It's another story for another day. But anyway, if you think you have furniture, it's going to be in the way, and if you're able to, just try to make some space so that they can at least, get themselves and their stretcher in. But don't go moving anything that's too heavy, or they should be able to do that. And believe me, I used to fling furniture out of the way sometimes if I needed to. It was like, whoa, this patient's going down, and stuff would go flying. You do what you have to do. And then what they're going to need is myself a little cheat sheet here, just because it'll go a little quicker. And that's the wrong one. Oh, here it is. So if you have time and you can, like if you're not going to be able to ride in the ambulance, and that's another thing, I don't necessarily agree. We had to call this same company one time. We were in town, and Mike got dizzy and went down on one knee, and so we had to call same ambulance company, and they were very curt with me. And they're like, "Oh, you have to ride up front." And there was, two people on the crew, so it was Mike and a medic in the back of the truck, and there is another seat on the other side, and I could have very easily sat there with him, but different places have different rules. I never had a problem with a family member, particularly with kids. You want to have the parent, unless the parent's a problem, but you want to have someone back there if you can, because people feel more comfortable. It's horrible being in an ambulance. You're with a bunch of people that you don't know, and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And um, at least that's my view. But anyway, if you have time to write it down, write down their age, date of birth, obviously name, address, phone number. If you're an emergency contact, put your name and your phone number down. We've had times when I had to do, like we were having a yard sale one time and I had to call for EMS, and I had to put some things away because we didn't live in the best neighborhood. And so I wasn't able to get to the hospital right away. So I wrote all this stuff down, and whoever their family doctor is, if they have, like he had a cardiologist at the same hospital. So you might want to write that down, like any specialist that they see, a neurologist, whatever. And write down their medications, and you want to put like how many milligrams and how often per day they take it, and obviously the name of the med, and any allergies they have. And I always asked, not everyone did this, but I not only asked about med allergies, but I also asked about any allergies to food, tape, or latex. And they don't usually use the latex gloves anymore, but a lot of people are allergic to different types of tape. And I always ask about the food, because if someone gets to the ER, like Mike, once he got in and he'd be stabilized, first thing he was looking for was something to eat. So I just figured I would just ask, because, in case they're hungry or something, that the ER staff or whatever would already know if they have any kind of food allergies, and obviously don't give them that type of food. And then you want to just write down, or you can just tell the EMS people when they get there, because that is their job, to determine what was going on that you needed to call an ambulance. Obviously, if the patient can give their version, that's the best, because they're the ones experiencing, whatever they're going through. But I try to be helpful, but try not to talk over the patient if the patient is trying to give their version, unless they have dementia or something and they can't really give a history, then it's very appreciated if you can tell the medic or EMT or whatever, what's been going on. And one thing that I always wanted to know, like if someone had a chronic problem and they called for an ambulance, let's say like asthma, just to pick something. One of the first things I always asked them was, well, what is different this time that you felt you needed to call an ambulance? As opposed to just grabbing your inhaler or nebulizer or whatever. And, it might be, well, I used my inhaler and I took a nebulizer and I still can't breathe very well. It just, you want to find out what in particular, particularly with chronic issues, what is different this time, because that tells me or told me a lot of stuff. So like I said, and if you have someone maybe that can be outside to direct the ambulance exactly where they need to be, they kind of wave at them when they come by. We had that once down in North Carolina. A coworker of Mike's just happened to pop over to the house, and he was standing at the end of our driveway when the ambulance came up, and he went like this. He was the only person outside, and they drove right past him. And then they came back, and then they drove past our house again. And I have a neighbor catty corner to me. She had the same ambulance company I had here the other day, showed up at her house one night at, I don't know, somewhere between like 2 and 4 a.m. because they went to the wrong house. I never, ever went to the wrong house. Even if houses aren't numbered, which I think pretty much most of the houses around here, I know ours, I have like the numbers on the mailbox, the numbers at the end of the ramp, the numbers at the top of the ramp. Like you cannot know our house number. But yeah, so these people showed up at her house in the middle of the night, and she was not happy. And I don't blame her, because you should at least be able to figure out where you're going, especially if the house number is on the house, which hers plainly is. And you walk up and you go, oh, that's, number 10, and we're supposed to be at 15 or whatever. That's not the right house. But I lost my train of thought with that one. But yeah, I mean, never once did we ever go to the wrong house. If you're like in a place where there's row houses, all your odd numbers are going to be on one side and you're even on the other. And if you have houses, a bunch of them that don't have a house number, you just find one that does, and then you count. Like if you're on the even side, if you're at like 112, then it'll go to 114 and then 116. And if you're looking for like 120, then it would be 2 doors up. It's easy. It's common sense. But like I said, basics are put your dogs away. If you have any cats that might escape, put them in the bathroom or whatever. Move some furniture out of the way if you can. And have some information ready for them. Have their meds. And most importantly, keep them on their toes. If like, for instance, if they're withholding oxygen and you feel the person needs it, say something to them. Say, excuse me, but, don't you think, he or she could use some oxygen? They look to me like they're turning blue or really struggling. And paramedics and EMTs should know what to look for as far as labored breathing. There are, different signs. I'm not going to get into all that. But most importantly, you just want to keep them on their toes and without upsetting the patient, because that was the biggest quandary I was in. I just was so ready to just start yelling and start directing. But like I said, Mike has seen me get like that, and it always got him very upset. And I was trying to find that line between not getting him more worked up, but at the same time, when I finally had to say, could some people please get over here and pick him up? That's just nonsense, and that should not have happened. But unfortunately, again, I don't know what's happened. I don't know. I think it's just too much social media, too little face-to-face interaction, and people, especially younger people, they just don't they don't seem to have that experience of, actually interacting with physical human beings. And it's very robotic, and it's not a whole lot of critical thinking going on, not a lot of common sense, and too much focus on the machinery. And even then, that girl didn't seem to know what was going on, even though she had a monitor on him. But I must say that the comments and the interaction yesterday, it cheered me up. I have been crying a lot, and don't let the facade fool you. This is still bothering me greatly, but I'm just trying to stay busy. I've been on a cleaning rampage today, and but it's very isolating, and I'm just really upset with my neighbors. I always said what a great little neighborhood. I live on a dead end street, so it's not a lot of traffic. So most of the people that go up and down here are people who live here, and nobody looks at me. No one says hi. No, nothing. It's very, very disheartening. But I guess people just, they don't know what to say, so they just don't say anything. And I do understand that, but it's still very difficult. And but anyway, just to prove that yes, this is a very, very old photograph, but I was I was still an EMT. That's my EMT patch. Yeah, that was the company I worked for. The patch looked almost identical, but I was, I don't know, somewhere between like maybe 25, 26, and 28-ish in that photo. And it was I remember that day that was my partner took the picture. I always had camera with me. I was really into photography until everything went digital. But I remember my partner taking that picture. It was like a 96-degree day, and it was really humid, and I felt like I was melting, and I was just sitting in our sort of kitchen. It was a really horrible station, but I remember just looking at him like, please don't take my picture because I just feel like melting. And just to prove that I could look feminine too, that was me. I was 21 in this picture. I was going to a friend's wedding, and my mom was taking the picture. And the reason I looked at it is because she was like, turn this, do this, do that. And I went, Mom, just take the picture. That's why I'm kind of like, you know. And it's funny because the guy whose wedding I was at, he didn't know who I was because he'd only ever seen me in like my ambulance uniform or those undershirts I like to wear. I've been wearing those since I was a kid, or a t-shirt, a pair of jeans or sweats or whatever. And he told me after, he's like, I kept looking at you thinking, who in the world's that? Because he'd never seen me like dressed up or, a little bit of makeup or, nothing. And so just to prove that, I was not like, I'm not a feminist. I don't know. I think if you want to do a job and if you can do the job, and especially if it's like physical, which back in my time it was because we didn't have stretchers where you push a button and it goes up or down. And, it was all very, very physical, very heavy, lots of heavy lifting, but, I think if you can do it, then you should do it. And if you can't, then you should probably go look for some other kind of job. And I also just wanted to throw in that there's so much talk about, I don't want to say the word because I never know what you can say on here or not, but the TOX, ick, masculinity, I don't have a problem with that. I like masculinity. I like guys who are masculine and are strong and tall. They can reach things that I can't reach. And that's one thing with Mike. It's, things have been breaking down or I need him here for so many things. And it's quite an adjustment. But for you guys out there, disregard all this crap about masculinity, and there's nothing wrong with it. And at least some of us out here, we do appreciate that. And but I had to wear a uniform, and sometimes I had long hair, had to wear it in a ponytail, or I had short hair, and I did look kind of boyish in my uniform and stuff, and I tried to look as feminine as possible, but it was nice to get dressed up once in a while, and I still like to get dressed up. It just makes me feel good. But again, I hope those were some pointers, maybe that might help if you need to call for an ambulance, so you kind of have an idea of what you should get together or what you need to do. And again, I appreciate the comments that were very, very, very lovely comments. Yesterday, I believe that was, and it brightened up my day considerably, and it helped me to kind of get motivated today to get some things done. And I can't say enough how much I appreciate that. And to whoever the new subscribers are, I appreciate that very much. I can't figure out how to find my way around YouTube Studio to find all this information that other people seem to find. But anyway, this went very long. I apologize for that, but I do thank you, and I hope that helped in some way. You all helped me very much. Thank you. Bye.